Hello, welcome back. Holy cow, we are on part 7 of my solo Brutal V Rising run. We have made a huge amount of progress in the last part, especially getting to the final boss in Act 2. So in this video, we should be able to defeat that boss, Octavian, and start in on Act 3. If you're new here, just starting right in the middle, I guess, this run is set to plus 25% for V-Blood multiplier instead of the default plus 70, and the gear level is plus 1 instead of plus 3. I talked a lot about that a couple videos ago when I changed it, but the short version is just that I believe in playing games at the level of challenge that they're fun to play at, and so that's what I'm doing. There are also a few other settings changed to make gathering, loot, and crafting a little bit faster, but nothing is turned up crazy high. By the way, I'm Savalian and I make videos about games, development, and creativity. So with just one boss left to go in Act 2, that's the first thing we're gonna do today. After I just run, I do my vampire chores. There's always vampire chores to do. Re-upping my sawmills to make paper, harvesting plants, making sure I have my potions ready. And then Octavian the Militia Captain is in the little garrison thing that is right next to my base, actually. I'm right next to two different bosses, Leandra and Octavian. So we don't have to go too far if we do need a few attempts for this one. Since this guy is the last boss of Act 2, I am expecting him to be pretty challenging like Quincy was. He's kind of the gatekeeper to the next zone, so to speak. On my way in, I actually found a 94% rogue that I scooped up and sent home with the Dust Collar. Rogue blood, for me, is one of the more useful ones, just generally speaking, but it does depend on how you play and what your strengths are. I tend to benefit from the rogue blood typically. Octavian is way back in the back area of the garrison, and there are some packs of ads that wander right through the little arena. So it's a good idea to kill them before starting the fight so they can't sneak up on you later. Just make sure you don't accidentally aggro Octavian before you're ready. Also, I can't say Octavian without thinking of Octavian from Animal Crossing. I should play some Animal Crossing. He is another sword guy who does a lot of big sword moves. Similar to Cassius actually, but a little bit of Gretel's moves mixed in there as well. And while I was watching some videos on this guy, one of the strategies a lot of people seemed to like was the double shield strategy. Just learning all his sword moves and blocking them with the shields, dodging when they're on cooldown. He has a big great sword. He does a hit with that he jumps, and he does multiple jumps. I think it's usually 3 jumps. He also throws out a bunch of these spinning projectiles similar to what Gretel would do. And then he does a vertical slash with a big wheel that comes out and goes forward, which is similar to another boss, but if my memory serves, it's not one we've fought yet, so I'm not going to talk about that one just yet. But this guy is just like a combination of a bunch of different boss moves. He doesn't have really a lot of his own to speak of. He's not one of the more thematically consistent bosses, in my opinion. He will sometimes go into this spinning move and sort of cycle around, and that can be really devastating. Something funny, this is also similar to a different boss that we haven't fought yet. But while he's doing this whirlwind attack, he shoots out a lot of these projectiles. And so it's hard to dodge. I would recommend not worrying about doing any damage or any sort of strategic moves during this. Just try to get out of the way while all this is happening. My usual strategy, which is using the skeletons, worked decently here because they drew his attention and thus his attacks away from me. I did die on my first try, which is not a surprise. My second and third tries failed as well. And then it was daytime, so I waited for the sun to set and re-cleared some of the ads, because this arena does not really have a lot of shade in it. I also used the daylight to go home and change some things up. I got a new jewel for frost barrier and swapped that in to try out that 2 shield method that I mentioned. And I'm also going to use the longbow instead of the slashers. The slashers can be useful for dodging some of the moves, but I'm not as good with timing that dodge as I could be, so I think the shield is going to help, and then I think the longbow is going to help as well. I also grabbed some blood from the rogue I just captured and drank some scholar blood. Not really sure what I wanted to use, so I've just got both on hand, kind of. My first try with the frost barrier was not a win, but I feel like I did better, so I went again with the same setup. I tried to get in as close as I could to block the multiple projectile move, just like with Gretel, to get as many of the little projectiles eaten up as possible, because it also gives me more skeletons if I do that. I also equipped the double dodge veil, the chaos one. I'm not sure when I did this or when I unlocked it, but once you have it and once you've used it, it's really hard to let go of. It's very useful for his multi-jump attack, though I think he does actually do 3 jumps, so you need a different way to dodge that last one or block it with the shield. And when he does that big greatsword jump, he does swap directions each time, so keep that in mind if you've got your shield up. You'll need to flip around to meet him, or it won't be blocked by your shield. After a couple more tries, I felt like I wasn't getting as much use out of the second shield as I could be, so I wanted a little bit more damage instead. So I switched back to my skull bullet, corrupted skull. I think that's the name, I'm not sure. I have not checked since the last time I forgot the name of it. While still using the holy shield to catch the projectiles mostly. And I also switched back to the slashers. So And this was the winning combination, and I think the thing that helped here was just practice. After a couple of attempts with a different weapon, I was still able to sort of learn the timing of all these moves, learn the order of them, get a feel for the space in here. So by this point, I had learned his movements well enough to predict what he was going to be doing, and then back with the attacks and the weapon that I'm most familiar with, I think is what got me the win. Now we're in Act 3 for real. This is the act where I think things get a little crazy. People have some strong feelings about Act 3, mostly because of the Cursed Forest, but we're not quite at the Cursed Forest yet. Next we're going to be dipping into Gloomrot South, which is an area full of mutated monsters and some kind of toxic steampunk machinists. There's also Gloomrot North, which is similar but with more lightning. And we don't go there until later, so we're in the sort of yellowy Gloomrot. Gloomrot North is kind of more of a blue color in general. And the first thing I did after getting to Gloomrot, which I regret doing and I'm going to clip a lot of it out, is that I wasted a lot of time setting up a second castle. And not even really a full castle, just like a little house basically. Because what I didn't realize was that you can only have one coffin assigned to you at any one point. So even if you have 2 castles, each with a coffin in them, you can only respawn at like the last one you used. So I was thinking I could create another spawn point for myself and make runbacks easier by creating this second castle. But then we run the issue of, well, all my stuff, my gear, my blood supply, my potions, everything is at my main base. And so if I wanted to respawn, but then go to that other base. That's like an additional teleport. I'm going out of my way. I can't just pick it. I don't know. It didn't seem worth it once I actually got it set up, but I spent a lot of time clearing land, building a little house to put the teleporter in, and the coffin, and a little bit of storage. But I basically never come back to this base later. I just don't use it. So here's what it looks like. Say goodbye. We're never going to see this again. And the first couple bosses in Act 3 are both pretty fun. I love how silly some of the boss dialogue is. For example, Domina is, as you might guess from the name, modeled after a dominatrix. So a lot of her dialogue is either a direct reference to that or like a little bit of a pun. But I'm actually going to go after the other boss in the first row here, and that is Ziva the Engineer, who is in the Transcendum Machine Factory. A lot of the Gloomrot bosses are actually inside, which I'm very thankful for, and the buildings they're in are kind of connected to their character's theme. So Ziva the Engineer is in a machine factory, the doctor's in a lab, and so on. As you're making your way to the machine factory, watch out for the big robots. When you first get into Gloomrot, they're much stronger than the other units. They're pretty tough to deal with. So just watch out for them. You can't avoid them. They're a little bit slow. Or you could try to fight them. You know, you do you. On my way to fight Ziva, I actually found 100% rogue. Such luck. I've gotten like maybe one 100% before. Maybe two, just because I've done so many different runs. But they're fairly rare. A lot of the people I know who have 100% units get them from the gruel, which we'll talk about later. But I just happened upon this 100%, scooped him up. And also he's a Gloomrot unit, so he gets a little bit of a bonus doing things in Gloomrot, which is nice for the servant hunts. Again, the Dust Caller comes in clutch. I don't have to change what I'm doing. I don't have to walk this guy home. We're just ready to go. So I fought my way into Ziva's arena. A lot of ads that patrol around here, but it is nice that it's sort of separate and it's inside. And this fight gave me a bit of trouble, and I'll explain why, but let's just talk through some of her moves first. Ziva is very mobile, and the arena is pretty big. She goes through a lot of different phases. When you first fight her, she's on the ground and can leap with her jetpack. She does some lightning moves. Most annoying is this big orb that just sort of follows you around slowly. Remember this orb? I managed to get it targeted on some of my skeletons right at the start, so it sort of left me alone. Then she does a ring of fire that you'll either need to dodge into or attack with range to actually hit her, because you won't be able to move around in sort of melee range. And then the next phase is a flying phase, and either during or shortly after this you will create some turret ads, some little robots that will follow you around and attack, so you want to take those out if you can. During the flying phase, she will fly around the arena following you, dropping puddles of fire. You can't hit her during this phase, but if there are any ads up, you should use this time to try and get them down, but don't get stuck in the fire either. After flying, she goes into what I'm going to call the green lightning phase. These attacks are much more deadly, and this might be her brutal change. I don't remember normal mode enough to say for sure. But one attack is just her spitting out a ton of electric bullets. You can use these pillars around the edge of the arena to block them. But the second attack is the one that gave me the most trouble, and it is a variation on that big orb from the beginning. But there's a lot more of them, and they're way faster. And I had such a hard time dodging these. These killed me almost instantly, and in a couple of later attempts they killed me as well, to the point where I specifically googled how people deal with these orbs. And from what I can tell, the strategy is to get as far away from her as you can before she spawns them, because they have like a distance, and if you're outside that distance, they won't like latch onto you, and so they'll sort of stay where they are. It's hard to get enough distance because it's a pretty big range, but I was able to do this during one of the later attempts. And I'll just mention, this fight does have a slightly annoying run back, especially with the robots patrolling and just all these little packs of guys. It seems like they respawn pretty quickly within the building that she's in for some reason, but it's fine. It's fine. There's also not a lot of shade in the outer part of this area, so be careful running back in the sun. I did another attempt that I feel was much cleaner through the start, but I hadn't learned about the lightning orbs yet, so I did die on those again. And eventually I caught on to that trick, and I was able to get far enough away from the green orbs. And even then, with a couple of them not targeted to me, it was still very challenging. I think a key here to remember as you're trying to dodge is their turning radius or their turning speed. They move pretty quickly, but they can't turn as quickly, so you can kind of get in close and go around them if you're good at games, which, you know, arguably I'm getting better, but I'm still not I would say like a very strategic gamer. I try my best. It still feels a little bit too chaotic for me, and I felt like it was luck that I was able to dodge a lot of these. But you can see that the further away ones are kind of ignoring me, so that part seems to work at least. But eventually I do get her down, and it took, I don't know, maybe 6-7 attempts. I didn't exactly keep track. And as we get more bosses down, we will start to need a lot of materials from Gloomrot, so I started farming some on my way back home. The two main materials that you need a lot of are tech scrap and the mutant grease. And the tech scraps come from the units, they come from the crates. In Gloomrot North, there's actually like piles of them that you can mine. And then the mutant grease, you might expect, comes from all the mutant critters running around here. There's also like vats of it that can sometimes spawn a mutant rat. So watch out for those. If you need the mutant grease, they're a decent source of it as well. I don't remember if there's any of them in the machine factory, but there's definitely some in one of the later bosses that we're gonna fight. Speaking of which, Ziva gives you critical crafting recipes that you need for the end of this game: the fabricator, sludge canister recipe, and radium bars. So tons and tons of the gear and stuff that you need at the end of the game, you need these radium bars for. And they're kind of hard to make, but once you figure it out, it's really just a matter of grinding more resources. I started making some sludge canisters straight away to get a head start on things. And after doing a lot of crafting and organizing and preparing paper and stuff, I actually went out for a leisurely night of fishing, just to stock up on fish for my little friends that I keep in the basement. Next, I went out to fight Domina, so it's back to Gloomrot. Domina lives in a little town in Gloomrot. She just wanders around outside. among all the ads. The ads here are not very strong. They're like mostly like villagers, but it's still a good idea to try and pull away as many of them as you can and clear them out before you start the fight, because she does move around quite a bit during the fight, and so she might pull some more units if you don't clear some of them beforehand. Domina's weapon is a whip, as you might guess, from her whole shtick. And she does mostly like a long melee range of attacks. Like it's kind of a longer range, but it's not like super long range. So she will follow you pretty closely to stay within that range. And all the houses in this town are not destructible as usual, so you can use them to block some of her attacks. And I am using a strategy that I saw on some of the videos I watched of kind of like circling around these houses and just keeping her right at the edge, popping in for an attack and then hiding again so she can't hit me with her lightning. The only problem with this strategy is that because of the visibility that you can't see like through the houses, it's hard to tell exactly where she's at and what she's doing. Some of her moves, she will do a normal whip attack, a little grapple move that's a bit bigger that pulls you in, and a longer whip attack. So just lots and lots of whipping. And then she'll also do a few lightning focus moves. She'll do a little lightning AoE, and she's kind of spinning around and it shoots out orbs. And then she'll also go into the air, zap lightning everywhere, and I don't know if you can hit her when she does that because she's up in the air. And then she periodically goes into these phases, kind of like, was it Vincent who did this? Where she just like runs around like a maniac, and if she steps on you, you will get flattened, which is, it's just like a funny little detail. That the dominatrix will step on you. I don't know. The first try at Domina was another boss attempt where I got her health down so low that you could not see it in the bar. I was begging for my skeletons to finish her off, but I think they got killed by the lightning too fast. I couldn't really see them. I also noticed as I was watching the playback that I had my ultimate ready and I did not use it. I don't think I even noticed it. That would have won it for me. So keep an eye on your ultimates and use all the spells that you've got. You know, don't forget to use your potions and whatnot either. Speaking of potions, I also see I ran out of health potions. There are several moments where she's doing these AoEs where she can't really hit you if you're behind an obstacle. So this is one of the few boss fights where you have like a plenty of time to heal. There's lots of these moments in her fight where you have like a couple seconds to do that. And the next attempt, I'm not even sure how I survived it. I spent almost the entire fight at below 25% health. But using that strategy that I stole from YouTube, I just kept dodging and running around the house in little circles. calling out my skeletons. They actually did their goddamn job this time, and they killed Domina for me while I was hiding behind a house and peppering her with arrows. So we got Domina after this really just white knuckle, teeth grinding attempt where I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I made sure to loot the town before heading back home to unload, and Domina unlocks the advanced grinder, which is way faster than the regular grinder. Build this as soon as you can. She also unlocks teleporters, which are not like useful per se, but they're really nice if you have a large castle plot. You can get from one end to the other very quickly. And each of the teleporters has like different requirements that we can't build all of them right now based on the equipment that we have. But you should be able to build one if I remember right. And of course, she also unlocks the whip as a weapon. So if you want to use the whip, this is actually the first time in the game that you can. I haven't really played around with the whip very much because you get it so late. I'm already like comfortable with the other weapons by this point. I was feeling motivated, so after heading home to unload and just making a few gemstones, restocking my potions, I went right back out to fight the next boss, which is Angram the Purifier. And I'm pretty sure I fought all the bosses in my previous run, but I did not remember this guy at all, so I had to really look up who he was and what he did, because my memory was completely empty of this guy. The Angram fight does take place outside, so be careful. The sky here is all weird and gray and yellow, so it can be kind of hard to get a feel for the time of day, so keep your eye on your little sun clock. Angram wanders a bit within this like big outdoor camp. So there's lots of little guys around here. Take some time to clear them out so you don't get any nasty surprises. And eventually I managed to catch Angram in the space that I cleared for him. He does a little patrol through this area. And we started the fight. Angram is a big guy, and I'm not even sure. I tried to look at pictures and I still can't tell if he is like a cyborg or if he's got a mech that he sits in. Like, it's very hard for me to tell from the pictures and from the game what exactly is going on with this guy, but he is essentially a big robot that shoots fire everywhere. You're gonna see a pattern here with the fire. Just fire, big puddles of fire. I used the longbow yet again so I could keep my distance from him and all the flames that he's shooting everywhere. You're gonna have to follow your instincts to do this one. A couple of things he will do: he will shoot a series of like arcing cannons that leave a puddle of fire at your feet. He will put up a purple shield. Watch out for this shield. I believe if you hit the shield, it sends out a bunch of fire from the sides, so you'll get hit by those if you attack his shield. You can attack him from the back if you can get around behind him. He'll also fire off a spiral of little fiery bullets in a circle, and all of these leave puddles of flames behind as well. My skeletons would hit his shield sometimes, so that's one of the downsides of using skeletons with any boss that has a shield, is that they're stupid. They don't know that they're not supposed to. After 50%, he seems to switch up his attacks a little bit, like there's a different rhythm to them, but it's really more of the same. It's fire that leaves puddles of fire just everywhere. This is another one that's a little bit of a bullet hell. It's slightly less chaotic than the Raziel fight, but it still feels like you're just dodging flames throughout the whole thing. And there we go. Another first try boss fight. Remember these for later, because every time I get one of these bosses down fairly easily, it boosts my confidence up another notch, and eventually I'm going to be put in my place. We can't be riding high forever. But for now, we're doing very well. We're making good progress. And I actually know with certainty now that I did fight Ingram before because he unlocks the next level of armor, which you need desperately to advance in the game. Well, at least I do. Maybe those professional no-hit brutal V-Rising players don't need fancy armor, but armor will save you. It will help so much. So we got this new armor. He also unlocks some other things, including the ability to spawn mutant rats at the sewer thing, and also to make irradiated gruel, which is a risky way to level up your servants. I have never used it myself because I've been too scared, but it's a way to get like another % or two of like quality out of your servants, but it has a chance of destroying them basically. But we can make some of that if we want to. I ran home to start on some of the things I need for the new gear and had a look at my boss list to see what's next. And this is where I realized that what's next is the Cursed Forest. And we already got a couple of bosses done in this video. Let's see, we got Ingram, we got Domina, we got Ziva, we got Octavian. So that seems like a good stopping point for now, because next time we are going to enter the Cursed Forest. And if you know what the curse of the Cursed Forest is, you're either very excited or you hate it. I'm not sure it's gonna be great for video, but we'll get through it. We'll do all the bosses in the Cursed Forest, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm gonna save all that for next time. So please give this video a like and subscribe, because I'm going to be back soon with another video, and I hope to see you there. Bye bye.